Alright, the last part of your notes is the greatest integer function. And the greatest integer function can be written in a lot of different ways. The most common way that I've seen is y equals this double bracket of x, where the double bracket of x is the greatest integer of x, and it's less than or equal to x. So this is like the step function, except this function rounds down. On your graphing calculators, you'd be looking for y equals int of x, and this is on the graphing calculators. I believe it's under the math menu, but you need to remember for the greatest integer function that it rounds down instead of rounding up. So a common example of the step function that was on the previous page, the one that rounds up, is a parking garage, because they want to get as much money from you as they can, and so they charge you, they round up for whatever they can. An example of the greatest integer function would be postage. So when you go to the post office, you pay the same price for up to 1 ounce. So they're going to round down. If you have up to 1 ounce, they're going to just have you charge 55 cents, or I guess postage has gone up. It used to be 55 cents. But X is your weight in ounces, and so anything less than 1 ounce is just 55 cents, or whatever the new postage rate is. And then any additional ounce, they charge you 15 cents for each additional ounce or portion thereof. And so if I were to mail something that was 2.4 ounces, I would pay 55 cents for the first ounce, and then I would only pay for an extra, instead of 2.4 ounces, we pay the 55 cents for the first ounce. And then they have you charged 0.15, so 15 cents for each additional ounce. And so we would get the 0.15 times 2 ounces, so you do pay for that first ounce again, but they round down. They don't have you round up. So instead of paying for 2.4 ounces, you'd pay another 30 cents on top of your 55 cents. And so your package that was 2.4 ounces would cost you 85 cents to mail. But again, the postage prices have increased, so those numbers are off just a bit. So the main idea is that your greatest integer function rounds down. This is also called a floor function. And another way to write this is f of x, or y, is equal to, and you do the little bracket thing with a little L-type shape on both sides, and that's your floor function, or the greatest integer function, just written in a different way. So you'll see this greatest integer function with this kind of L-shaped bracket, the double bracket, and y equals int of x. So you'll see that all three ways. But the idea is that the function rounds down. So be careful here. -2 would just round down to -2. -1.7 would also round down to -2. We're rounding down to the nearest, rounding down, not even to the nearest number, just rounding down. So -1.3, even though it's closer to -1, it rounds down to -2. -1, again, beware here, -1's just going to stay where it's at. But anything closer to 0 here is going to round down to -1. So -0.9 rounds down to -1, -0.5 rounds down to -1, -0.2 rounds down to -1, even though -0.2 is closer to 0 than it is to -1. All right, 0 is going to stay at 0. 0.2 rounds down to 0, 0.7 rounds down to 0, 1 stays where it's at. You get the idea. 1.3 rounds down to 1, 1.6 rounds down to 1, 1.9 rounds down to 1. 2 stays where it's at, and we are rounding down, so 2.2 rounds down to 2, 2.8 rounds down to 2, and 3 would stay where it's at. So when we graph these, you can scale your graph however you want. You guys know I write kind of big, so I'm going to go every 2 boxes is 1. If you want to go every 1 box is 1, that's fine too. 1, 2. I'm going to do the same scale all the way around. And we have -1, and -2, -1, -2, -3. Alright, so if your x value is -2, we round down to -2. So we have this -2, -2 point, and this is a point on the line. And anything up until -1, that is between -2 and -1 is going to round down to a -2. So until we get to -1, we're on this step, and then at -1 we jump up, and at -1 we have a point at -1. And so anything from -1 to 0 is going to stay on this step, and at 0 we have the open circle. So you guys can see this. Then at 0 we have a point at 0, and anything from 0 up until 1, with an open circle at 1, is on this step. And then we have a point at 1, 1, so we jump up again. This is a jump in the graph. So from 1 to 2 with an open circle at 2, we're on that step. And then you have a point at 2, 2. So we jump up to 2, 2, fill in circle. And anything from 2 to 3 is on the step with an open circle at 3. But once we hit 3, we're up to 3. And there's your point. So this is just like the step function, except that the greatest integer function rounds down. All right, good luck on your quiz tomorrow. There are going to be 6 graphs. You need to know which graphs are even, which ones are odd. You need to know which ones are neither. You need to know what's increasing interval. Remember, use your x values, or decreasing interval, or constant intervals. Look over your notes. Your quiz tomorrow is 1.2 B and C. So good luck on that. Finish up your homework. You have a worksheet to help you review, and I'll see you all soon.